light. What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Okay. So everybody's at their home, right?
Yes.
No,
Nefesh Yehudi Hoya
want to have a pillow?
Mizrach Kadima Ayin Letzion Sophia Od lo avda tikvateinu hatikva bajnot alpayim liyotam chofshi be'artzeinu b'eretz Zion v'Yerushalayim liyotam chofshi be'artzeinu b'eretz Zion v'Yerushalayim.
You lost it?
No, I don't. Thank you, Hasan Goller, for the beautiful and moving renditions of the Star-Spangled Banner and Hatikva. Good morning and a warm welcome to all our members and friends who are joining us from all over the country and from abroad. A special welcome and shalom to the members of the World Zaglembi organization who are joining us today from Israel. And it's actually good evening for you. My name is Hannah Pfeffer, and I'm a co-president of the Fraternal Order of Bendin-Sosnowicer and a second-generation member of FOBS. I am the daughter of Rosa Zimba-Knopf-Plauner from Benjin and Felix Plauner of blessed memory from Grodziec. On behalf of my co-president, Lorraine Kaufman, and all the officers of FOBS and executive board members, I welcome you to our virtual Yizkor commemoration. Shana Tova, we wish you a sweet, healthy, happy, and prosperous new year. May we all be inscribed and sealed in the book of life for a year of new beginnings, of healing and peace, and a return to normalcy. Faced with the need to socially distance for everyone's safety, this is the second year in a row that we are not able to gather at our monument at Beth Israel Cemetery. Although we cannot be together in person, we are together in spirit to commemorate our 78th Yizkor service. We are not alone as we recite the Kaddish together. We are connected as a community of survivors, their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren through our shared history and geography and our shared obligations. We remain steadfast in our responsibility to remember and to honor the memory of our families who were murdered during the Holocaust. We are steadfast in our commitment to mourn all who were lost all the grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins we never got to meet. They did not live to see their dreams come true. We carry their names. We remember the 6 million innocent men, women, and children who were exterminated simply because they were Jewish. And we are steadfast in our commitment to honor our survivors. Our survivors are our heroes. They showed us that it is possible to start all over again. They rebuilt their lives out of the ashes. They created new families. They lived a life that matters. Their resilience, determination, courage, and humanity, despite the evil they endured, their powerful will to live, they are an inspiration to all. In this time of great uncertainty and unprecedented challenges, it is heartwarming to know that our members' commitment to remembrance, to Holocaust education, and to tzedakah is unwavering. We are proud of our 2 Gs, our 3 Gs, and yes, our 4 Gs, who year after year are eager to participate in our memorial service. They are eager to share with us their personal history, the stories that were passed on to them by their parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents. They are eager to share with us the memories of growing up as the son or daughter of Holocaust survivors, or as their grandchild or great-grandchild. They are eager to share with us how they became witnesses to these memories of heartbreaking loss, of horrific suffering, of miraculous survival, and the remarkable return to life. Our speakers are eager to pass on how these stories and memories have influenced their lives, how they have shaped their moral values and their sensibilities, and how this legacy has instilled in them the sacred obligation of Zechor, of remembrance. It is our responsibility to bear witness to the stories and memories of our survivors from generation to generation, so that the world never forgets, so that we can pass on the lessons of what happens when the world is silent. We are grateful to our FOBS community who so generously supported our Yizkor appeal last year, despite the difficult economic times. Record contributions allowed us to donate generous amounts to 2 charities that directly support needy Holocaust survivors, both here in the metro area and in Israel. Your generosity also allowed us to give smaller grants to 6 other charities, among them Magen David Adom, Blue Card, Dorot, Met Council on Jewish Poverty, and the Jewish National Fund, all organizations that are aligned with our mission. Your generosity is a tribute to our shared history and our deeply held commitment to remember and never forget. It is a testament to our sacred obligation to care for our survivors and those in need. Before we begin the service, I would like to express our deepest gratitude to all the participants in this virtual service. They are joining us from their homes all over the country. Special thanks go to our Zoom co-hosts, Jeremy Pfeffer and Gerald Sachs, for managing the program. A big thank you to Alan Pensack for being here with us to provide technical help. If anyone has trouble logging in or is experiencing audio-visual issues, please contact Alan right now. His number is 914-623-8121. And of course, we wish to acknowledge the efforts and dedication of all our executive board members who work behind the scenes to make the Zoom service happen. And one final point of information, the service is being recorded. The link to the YouTube video will be emailed to you in a few weeks and will also be posted on our Facebook page. I would now like to introduce our second generation speaker, Dr. Jack Cook.
Jack, sorry, please unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. To all of you, good morning and Shana Tova. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jack Cook. I'm a second generation member of the fraternal order, married to Nancy, father to three wonderful sons, and proudly pappy to our 6 beautiful grandchildren. My father, Henry, was from Sosnowicer, Poland. He was a survivor of a Nazi forced labor camp. And my mother, Gertrude, also known as Butcher to her friends, was from Bendin in Poland. She was a survivor of Auschwitz-Birkenau. Throughout my childhood, my parents spoke very little to me of the Holocaust. They thought that by not doing so, they were protecting me of the horrors they witnessed. Little did they know. Fortunately, through the commitment of survivors and their offspring today, we have school programs that educate our youth. We commemorate Yom HaShoah at our temples, participate in Holocaust remembrances, and of course have Yad Vashem in Israel and the Holocaust Museum as living memorials to perpetuate the true history of what occurred. Yizkor journey with more things change, or they stay. It's now 76 years since the end of World War II and the liberation of the Nazi war camps. And it appears to me and many others that I know and around the world that anti-Semitism is still strong and growing across the world and in parts of our free, quote unquote, political system. We must remember and never forget. It continues to encroach on our families, our homes, and our once considered protected communities. Those who deny the existence of the Holocaust and who claim Jews use this merely as propaganda, and so does Israel, threaten not only our daily lives, but Israel's existence. We must learn and teach our 4th generation to not allow the revisionists to gain a foothold in our society. When Israel is strong and is supported by the United States, our enemies understand what that determination means should they decide or try to destroy our birthright. If Jews in the diaspora and the leaders of the United States waver on this commitment to Israel, we are all at risk. We must stand up and let our elected officials know that this is our line in the sand. Separately, but equally important, we need to educate our non-Jewish friends and colleagues to that which is not always clear in the media. Israel wants peace, but we need partners that do not pledge or advocate for our total destruction. The first generation of survivors, our parents, showed great courage in starting families in a new country. Absent this courage, we would not be here today. They did this after experiencing the unimaginable loss of their own families. They had incredible faith and courage to rebuild. There was very little external help. They had themselves, the little family that survived, and their friends. They helped each other. We now have a 4th generation because of their courage. Among them, my 6 grandchildren. They're being educated about the Holocaust by their grandparents and their parents, of which I am proud of. I know my parents are looking down and smiling today because this was my father's, constant battle. Don't forget, you cannot forget. Will we have the courage to stand up for them until their voices are strong enough to speak out on their own? The first generation of survivors' candles are now dimming. They explained to us, they taught us, and will now be their voices as we remember in perpetuity. For those who have come to honor and remember today by reciting Kaddish, as we do each year, for our lost grandparents, aunts, uncles, nieces and nephews, and their friends, whose names are on this monument you saw when we started today. The first generation erected that in memoriam. This is the very least we can do to continue it. Thank you. I'd like to now call upon Chazan Larry Goler for the recitation of Psalm 23. Thank you.
Psalm 23, first in English, then in Hebrew. Mizmor David, Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God gives me repose in green meadows and guides me over calm waters. God will revive my spirit and direct me on the right path, for that is God's way. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are at my side. Your staff and your rod comfort me. You prepare a banquet for me in the presence of my foes. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and kindness shall be my portion all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Adonai rohi lo echzar b'hinot sheyarbitzeni al mei menuchot yinaleini nafshi yeshovev yahancheni v'maglei tzedek yancheni v'maglei tzedek leman shemo gam ki elech begeitz al mavet lo ira rak yata imadi shivtecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni Taharoch lefanai shulchan neged zorai dishanta b'shemen roshi kosi revaya Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai kol yemei chayai meshavti mevet Adonai liorech yamim Adonai roi lo echzar Adonai roi lo echzar
Good morning and good evening. Hello, my name is Jessica Shane Warren, in Hebrew, Shindel Sephora. I am named after great aunts who I am proud to represent every day. Each year, I am thankful for this landsmanship for creating a tradition that I am proud to say I have been part of for over 30 years. I have the unique and high honor of having all four of my grandparents, Louis and Esther Glickstein, and Natek and Helinka Shagaski, as survivors and members of this group. My family traces back to Strumyshitz, Olkush, Bendin-Sosnowicer. As their families grew, their children joined them yearly in Woodbridge for Yizkor. In 1984, the two youngest children in each family, Mark Shagaski and Heidi Glickstein, finally had their first conversation after many years of Yizkor services and Beth Israel visits. 2 years later, they were married, and they too grew their family to include myself and my sister Laura. The tradition of having a place to belong and take time away to remember and celebrate the lives of our families together continued. My sister and I have been regular attendees of Yizkor and regular visitors to Beth Israel. The notion of tradition and sharing our stories is one I continue today with our newest member of the fourth generation, my 19-month-old daughter, Lila Noah Warren. I am honored to share our rich history and heritage with her and hope that she will do the same for her children and their children after. It has been a difficult time these past few months, raising a newborn in the midst of a global pandemic. But I think back to my grandparents and the courage and determination they showed to forge ahead in even more challenging and uncertain times. And I find comfort and strength in my ancestry. The new year offers us an opportunity to wipe the slate clean and to renew our outlook for the bright and sweet future we all have ahead. It is with those eyes that I look forward to the year to come. Excited for my daughter to blossom and for the world to hopefully begin to heal. I hope you all can feel the comfort and strength of this community as I do. And I wish you all L'Shana Tova and a happy and sweet new year. Now I would like to hand it over to fourth generation speaker, Addison Carly Fisher.
Shana Tova. My name is Addison Carly Fisher. I am the great-granddaughter of Carl Plonner from Bendin. My middle name Carly is after him. I am proud to speak to you today together with my cousin Fiona. Our great-grandfathers were brothers and survived the Holocaust and built a family of 4 children, 9 grandchildren, and 8 great-grandchildren. My great-grandfather survived the Holocaust and he was liberated from Dachau concentration camp. Adolf Hitler wanted to get rid of the Jews and blame them for all their problems. But I am here today to show the world that 3 generations of Jews have been born in our family since the Holocaust. My great-grandpa means so much to me, even though I never met him. My great-grandma always tells me how I'm so much like him. My parents gave me the name Carly, or Kalanit in Hebrew, after my grandpa, Kalonimus, as my parents hoped I would share his strength of character, love of Judaism and family, and his warm heart. Even though the Holocaust is over, we haven't learned from the mistakes of the past. There are still tragedies happening in the world, like in Afghanistan, where not all people have freedom. It is important that even though the Holocaust is over, we still talk about it to remember that it happened and help others learn how to be kinder to each other. That's why this service every year is so important. I'm proud to live in a country where I don't have to hide that I'm Jewish. People accept people for who they are. I'm proud to teach my friends at my public school about Judaism, and I know they will accept me. The Holocaust built a safer world for Jews to live proudly. I will continue to remember and help others too. Now, I would like to introduce my cousin Fiona, who will speak next.
Hi, I'm Fiona Pfeffer, 4th generation. I'm the great-granddaughter of Rosa Plonner and Felix Plonner of blessed memory. I'm almost 9 years old and have been coming to this event for my whole life, and it's an honor to finally speak. I was named after my great-grandfather Felix, and my Hebrew middle name is Sephora, which is named for his sister. I am sad I never got to meet my great-grandfather, but I've been so lucky to have a special relationship with my great-grandmother, my Nana. I have a lot in common with my Nana. We both love chocolate more than anything in the world. When my parents aren't looking, she always sneaks me chocolate. And we can both eat bread instead of a meal. She plays the mandolin and I play the guitar. We both love to spend time with family. My Nana loves to travel and so do I. Many of my firsts have happened at my Nana's house. My first Rosh Hashanah, my first Passover, and the first time I learned to ride a bike. My Nana was very lucky. She was one of 50 people who were chosen to be saved during the Holocaust because a man changed the number on her arm. I want to learn more about the Holocaust and my family's history, and I want to share that with my children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. I wish everyone a happy and healthy New Year.
And now Lorraine will organize the candle lighting.
Shana Tova. My name is Lorraine Ruth Kaufman, and I'm the youngest child of Herzka and Tabula Kaufman of blessed memory. They stemmed from Sosnowicer and Pacanów, Poland. This year, I set a goal to get 6 survivor candle lighters, but the challenge was too great. The survivors too few or too fragile. Today's candle lighting will only involve 4 survivors, and I first want to say something to them and to all of our survivors who are online. Your suffering is something we, your children, have been trying to understand all of our lives. We have tried our best. Intellectually, we think we understand the nightmare you lived through. However, the darkness, pain, and anguish of your Holocaust experience is beyond even our imagination. We want to assure you that we remain committed to remembering and telling your story to all who will listen, and even to those who won't. We thank you for having the courage and the co-op after the Holocaust to choose life and to bring children into a world that had forsaken you. Our love, respect, and admiration go out to each and every one of our survivors. The world is full of darkness, and anti-Semitism continues unabated worldwide. We, the generations born to survivors who were the remnant of European Jewry, need the light of these candles, if only to remind ourselves that we are the spark that enables the light. We are also the visionists, deniers, and the poison of the internet superhighway. We must bring our light to the dark world around us.
Why is not there?
Our parents,
Didn't want to show her face. Okay.
our parents were the first targets of the final solution. But we, the second, third, and fourth generations, were the generations that Hitler, Yamach Shemo, intended never to be born. As we light these candles, we renew our commitment to remember what half the world is trying to deny, and we at the other half has already forgotten. Today, each of our candle lighters will have a chance to personalize this moment by sharing something that they would like us to remember. At this moment, I would like our candle lighters to unmute before speaking. And I'd like to introduce the first candle. The first candle is in memory of our beloved grandparents, for whom many of us are named. The world stood silent while our grandparents were murdered by the Nazis and their collaborators. Giving their personal message and lighting the first candle in memory of our grandparents, our survivor, Esther Glickstein, and her daughter, 2G, Heidi Shigaski.
Good morning. We light this candle in memory of all those who perished in the Holocaust and as a light to remind us to be diligent against the rising anti-Semitism that's occurring around the world today.
Thank you. The second candle is in memory of the rest of our slaughtered families, aunts, uncles, and cousins we never knew, and for whom many of us are also named, giving their personal message and lighting the second candle in memory of our slaughtered families, our survivor, Rosa Plovner, accompanied by her daughter, 2G Ruth Blumenfeld, and son-in-law, Michael Blumenfeld.
Daughter looks like the mom. Well, thank you. So I'm Ruth Plovner Blumenfeld, the daughter of Rosa Plovner and Felix Plovner of blessed memory, and the sister of Hannah Pfeffer, our co-president, whom you heard from earlier. All proud members of this society as long as I can remember. I have the privilege of being here with my mother as she lights this candle in honor of our families and to remember all those family members that we never had a chance to know. My mother, Rushka, or Ruzha in the old days, is from Bendin, and she survived Bobrek and the Blechhammer camps, both part of Auschwitz. My mother is one of 100 or so survivors to have 2 numbers on her arm. And that's a very significant finding that we just learned about recently. With the first number, she would have been annihilated in Auschwitz, but thanks to a clear-thinking camp elder who managed to bribe camp officials, she and those other women were given a fresh lease on life with a second number and identity tattooed on their arms. My mother wasn't sure why she had those 2 tattoos, and the story of the duplicate tattoos just came out in a new book published by Mel Leitner of our society called What They Didn't Burn. So my father was from Grudzic, and that's the town next to Bendin. And only because my sister and I visited Poland a few years back with the World Zagłębie organization do these strange sounding Polish towns have a deeper meaning for us. When we were there, I learned to appreciate how connected we are in our collective memories and in our heritage, how connected we descendants from the Zagłębie region really are. On that trip in 2018, more than a few of us discovered new family connections around the world that we never knew we had. What a blessing to be able to commemorate together now and to honor my mother today as she is 99 and a half years young, the beloved grandmother of 3 wonderful grandchildren and their families, including 3 adorable great-grandchildren. The power of remembering is instilled in our hearts and in our souls, and is now passing so beautifully into the 3rd and 4th generations as we are hearing today. I'm gonna light the candle. Shana Tova, everyone. Can you see my wife, Elaine?
Thank you. The third candle is in memory of all the families of the Zagłębie region who were murdered without leaving any surviving family. Today, we remember them and giving a personal message and lighting the third candle in memory of those without any surviving family will be survivor Helen Bronner and daughters 2G Renee Bronner Peston and 2G Linda Seidenstein.
We light this candle in memory of all those who perished in the Holocaust. We also memorialize our family members who survived the Holocaust but have since passed away, our Uncle Moshe and Aunt Sala of blessed memory. Lastly, always in our hearts, His light continues to shine in our lives through His 8 grandchildren and 13 great-grandchildren. We light this candle to memorialize our father, Sam Bronner of blessed memory. Our dad was a hero during the war, risking his life to help others. He was our hero always.
No, you're going to represent.
Dad and grandparent, the most kind, thoughtful, generous, and fun-loving man who lit up our world and is missed each and every day.
do well.
Thank you. The fourth candle is in memory of the Jews of Poland. Out of 3.5 million Polish Jews before the war, only 500,000 lived through the terror of the Holocaust. Our parents represent the 20% who survived, giving their personal message and lighting the fourth candle for the 3 million Polish Jews who were murdered will be survivor Renee Silverstein and her daughter, Tuji Jeanette Cohn. And I understand your son-in-law is there as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I think it's important to reflect upon what a survivor means, the word itself. There's no substitute for knowing a Holocaust survivor up close and personal. But who exactly is a Holocaust survivor? These days, we take a broad view when we discuss the concept of a survivor. In this context, all those who, because of their Jewish origins, faced the prospect of murder by the Nazis and their collaborators during World War II, but lived are now known and seen as survivors. These include those who lived through the horror of labor and concentration camps, but also those who survived in ghettos, in hiding, by passing as non-Jews, by joining the partisans. Our current understanding of a survivor is widely and rightly anyone who escaped death by whatever means possible. My mother, Renee Nunberg Silverstein, born in Radomsko, Poland, counts herself among the lucky as one of the approximately 80,000 survivors still living in the United States. Every one of them, including my mother, has a story to tell. One of loss, parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and a brother. High school friends and fellow labor camp internees became her family and support system. Later on in my life, they became my extended family as well. A story of resilience, liberated after 4 labor camps, 20 years of age and alone. And a story of new beginnings, meeting her husband, my father, Edward Silverstein of blessed memory, in a small town called Pettiswaldo, married in 1947 in a suburb of Munich, and making their way to New York on the SS Sturgis, as in my mother's words, a couple of greenhorns. And a story of hope. The family she lost has been replaced by 2 grandchildren, Shanna, who's on your board, and Jackie, and 3 great-grandchildren, Ethan, Teddy, and Sasha, adding new branches to a family tree that has lost so much. Their story and the words from my fellow honorees today need to be shared as we witness an increase in anti-Semitism around the world, as well as a lack of awareness among adults under 40 about the Holocaust. Words can hurt, but they can also tell the truth. We can choose wisely, as Holocaust lessons are germane today in many parts of the world. 25 years ago, I gave my mother an ancestry and family tree album so she can document and record her thoughts. I want to share just a brief excerpt. Today is the 8th of May. It is 50 years since the liberation from camps and the end of World War II, and also my wedding anniversary. Brings so many memories, so many bittersweet memories. It is hard to live without an extended family, envying people with stacks of family albums and Cousins Club meetings. But you will not be different as I was. Thank God you will grow up to have a big family and the world will be perfect, I hope. I think we all share my mother's thought that we all want a perfect world. And her greatest wish, as it is for us, is to vow to never forget those who passed and those who have perished, and we will never stop caring for our survivors. I'll light the candle now.
All you have to do is read it. I think that's all. It's good what you're going to say.
Thank you.
That was a long time.
The fifth candle. The fifth candle is for every Jew who has ever been murdered for simply being a Jew, whether it was Auschwitz in Poland, Babi Yar in the Ukraine, the Olympics in Germany, a kosher supermarket in Paris, or the murders of Jews in synagogues in Pennsylvania or California. We remember those murders today. Giving their personal message and lighting the fifth candle will be 2G Ben Silverstein and his wife Elaine.
Okay, thank you, Lorraine, and Happy New Year, everyone. Let me get the words up on the screen here. I'd like to start with a little bit of my family history. My father, Murray Silverstein, was born in the city of Bendin, which before the war was 60% Jewish, as hard as that is to believe. Germany invaded Poland September 1, 1939, and the Nazis stormed into Bendin September 4th, just 3 days later. My father managed to escape east, and while he did not say much about his war years, he spent the war in Soviet labor camps. My mother, Ella, maiden name Berger, was born in Czechoslovakia and spent the war years in a ghetto. She and her family were deported to Auschwitz along with the Hungarian Jews in May 1944. Against all odds, my father survived the Soviet labor camps, and my mother survived Auschwitz and a death march to Bergen-Belsen. My parents met in Sweden after the war, where I was born. There were 4 surviving siblings in my father's family. My mother and 1 sister were her family's only survivors. I grew up in Brooklyn, where my younger brother Stephen was born. I grew up with survivor parents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. How my parents and relatives managed to survive the war is nothing short of miraculous. They had the courage and fortitude to come to America, not knowing the language and culture, with not a penny to their name, and create a new and vibrant life. My parents and relatives did not speak in hateful terms about the Germans and did not say much about the Holocaust until my brother and I were much older. We Jews are taught to love one another, not hate. As an adult, I have borne personal witness to acts of anti-Semitism and injustice. The Holocaust took place because the world did not speak out. Not in 1935, when the Nuremberg laws were passed in Germany. Not in 1938, when Kristallnacht, the night of the broken glass, took place. Whatever might have been said was too little and too late. There is a famous poem written by a German pastor who was opposed to Hitler, who did speak out and spent 7 years in concentration camps. I would like to read this poem. First, they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then finally they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. The lesson is clear, my friends. It is not enough to remember and say never again. It behooves all of us to stand up and give voice whenever we see acts of injustice rendered against others simply because they are different. If we don't speak out for others, who will speak out for us? Lane, let's light the candle.
You can take this down. Can I still see you?
Thank you. The sixth candle. The world knows of only one Jewish child murdered in the Holocaust, Anne Frank. But we know the dreadful, horrific truth. 1.5 million Jewish children murdered before they could dream, murdered before they could achieve, and murdered before they can understand. Today, we light the sixth candle in memory of all the children, of alle Kinder, the 1.5 million Jewish boys, girls, and babies murdered before the Holocaust, murdered during the Holocaust while the world shut its eyes and shut its heart. Giving his personal message and lighting the sixth candle will be 2G, Jerry Zaks, and family.
Thank you. Shana Tova to everyone. My name is Gerald Zaks, and I am a second-generation survivor and son of FOBS members Saul and Bertha Zaks of blessed memory. I am also the nephew of Shaya and Lily Zaks. Saul, Shaya, and Lily were all born and raised in Bendin. I am joined today by my wife, Beth, my daughters, Cheryl and Michelle, my niece, Lisa, and my cousins, Alan and Jerry Zaks. There are 9 grandchildren and 11 great-grandchildren also attending. As I light this candle, I am thinking of my paternal grandparents, Gershon and Friedla Zaks, and my maternal grandparents, Moritz and Sarah Goldstein. But this sixth candle has special meaning, as it pays tribute to the memory of the 1.5 million children who were murdered without understanding why, and whose innocence protected them from knowing the hate and evil that can exist in the world. Today's honor is, of course, a sad time, but it is doubly sad because the memory of the Holocaust is fading. Last year's surveys found that 1 in 10 Americans under the age of 40 have never even heard of the Holocaust. And 63% of those who responded did not know that 6 million Jews were killed. I am lighting this candle for the Kinder that were lost, but I need to talk to the Kinder that survived. We, the second, third, and fourth generation, exactly my point. The second, third, and fourth generation survivors must step up and dedicate our time and energy to keep the memory of the Holocaust and our family's history alive for the coming generations. All told, the 28 survivors of the descendants of my grandparents are a testament to the failure of the Nazis' final solution. We must all never be complacent. We must never stay silent. And most importantly, we must never forget.
Thank you to all of our candle lighters. Gamar Chatima Tova. Have an easy and meaningful fast. I'm going to pass it along to Alan. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you, Jerry, and all of the candle lighting families, and all of the prior speakers for their moving words. The lit menorah that you saw on your screen is the actual menorah that we use at our in-person Yizkor commemorations, and we hope to be back in person together with each other with our lit menorah in future years to come. Another tradition that I've experienced over about 60 years of attending our annual Yizkors is the high holiday and our Yizkor appeal And the picture in my background is actually probably about 50 or more years ago. And that's my father speaking. And I'm Alan Zaks. I'm the son of Shia and Layla Zaks, of blessed memory. And that's my dad, who often offered the high holiday and the Yizkor appeal, raising funds for Israel bonds, ambulances for the state of Israel, and other worthy charitable organizations, as we've continued that tradition over the years. And that gives me the honor to introduce our current vice president and third generation Holocaust survivor, Jeremy Pfeffer, for this year's appeal.
Thank you, Alan. And Shana Tova. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for a second Zoom Yizkor service. It's wonderful to see so many participating from all over the country and all over the world. While we would, of course, prefer to be together in person, this medium does provide the opportunity from people from Europe, Israel, and elsewhere to be part of this service in ways that they could not previously. So I guess some small silver lining. It is a year later, and while many things have gotten better, vaccines, schools reopened, improving economy, we are sadly far from out of the woods. The presence of variants, likely for the foreseeable future, will require continued vigilance as we all find ways to adapt to our evolving realities. But what the pandemic has taught us is to be flexible, to be patient, to be creative, and most importantly, community-oriented. On this last point, I'm proud that our community has consistently risen to the occasion, and we are pleased to see that continue today, and I'm sure into the future. As we did last year, we have once again chosen to support self-help in the United States and in Israel, the UJA's Community Initiative for Holocaust Survivors. Self-help provides high-quality services and care to more than 4,300 survivors in the New York metropolitan area. The UJA initiative similarly provides unparalleled services through a network of Israeli organizations that care for survivors. As a reminder, 100% of all funds donated will go directly to these two wonderful organizations, which enable survivors to maintain their independence, dignity, and quality of life as they manage their day-to-day lives vulnerable to COVID. Our goal this year is to raise $24,000 for both programs. We are pleased to say that we are well on our way to reaching that goal. To those of you who have already sent in your donation cards, we thank you for your unwavering support and generosity. For those who have not, we ask that you contribute whatever you are able to by sending in the donation card that you received in the mail. If you do not have your card, please reach out to one of our board members or send an email to fobs18@gmail.com, and we will make sure to send one to you. Thank you again for your enthusiastic participation this year, and we wish you and your families a new year filled with good health, happiness, and of course, joy. Lorraine?
Thank you, Jeremy. The cities and towns. These are the cities and towns in Poland that comprise the Zagłębia region. They are just strange sounding words to us, but they were home to our survivors. These are the cities and towns of their Kinderjahren, their childhood, where they laughed and played, where they dreamt and prayed. These are the cities and towns of our grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and all the generations that came before. Today, we will say Kaddish for those who would have loved us had they survived the horrors of the Holocaust. And today, we will say Kaddish for those who perished with no surviving family. For in these cities and towns, each survivor, each child of a survivor, each grandchild of a survivor, each great-grandchild of a survivor is mishpacha, family. Bendin-Sosnowicer, Chelaj, Klimontov, Danduvka, Dombrova Gornicha, Goanug, Rojets, Xavera, Lagisha, Machki, Miłowice, Mojeów, Niemce, Nifka, Olkush, Piaski, Sławków, Stemjeshice, Volbrum, Wojkowice, Zaguzhe, Zawiercie, and finally, Zomkowice. Thank you. And now to Hassan Golar for the Kilmole Rachamim.
Exalted and compassionate God, great infinite, rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, to the souls of our brethren who perished in the Shoah, men, women, and children of the house of Israel who were slaughtered and suffocated and burned to ashes. May their memory endure and inspire deeds of charity and goodness in our lives. May their souls thus be bound up in the bond of life. May they rest in peace.
שוכן במרומים, אמצעי מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, לנשמות כל אחינו בני ישראל, שנטבחו בשואה, אנשים, נשים וטף, שנחנקו ושנשרפו ושנהרגו, שמסרו את נפשם על קידוש השם, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסירם בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם. אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבותיהם. ונאמר אמן.
Well, it's officially past noon, so good afternoon to everybody and Shana Tova. I'm Steve Elbaum. Next to me is my wife, Judy, whose parents are also Holocaust survivors and were members of the society. My father, Isaac Elbaum, and my mother, Sala Elbaum, were from Bendin and Olkush, respectively. I'd like to mention the names of my grandparents who I never met. My father's parents were Ita Volhendler Elbaum and Yisrael Elbaum, for whom I'm named. Both of them passed away before the war. My mother's grandparents, who I also never met, were Tema Holzdorf and Shlomo Bierman. My sister Trudy, who's on this screen, is named after our grandmother, Tema. And we believe that my maternal grandparents were rounded up and murdered during the final liquidation of the Old Kush ghetto in June of 1942, either in Old Kush or in Auschwitz. I'm going to ask my wife, Judy, to also recall the members of her parents and her grandparents.
Hi, my name is Judy Ehrman Elbaum. I am the daughter of Holocaust survivors David Ehrman and Fela Rosemarin Ehrman. My father, David, was from the town of Zawiercie, and he is an Auschwitz survivor. And my mother, Fela Rosemarin Ehrman, was from Sosnowicer, and she survived several forced labor camps. Among them was Meersdorf. My father, David Ehrman, was the son of Leibish and Yittel Ehrman, who perished in the Holocaust. And my mother, Fela, was the daughter of Yaakov and Miriam Rosemarin, who also perished in the Holocaust. My Yiddish name is Mariam Yittel, and I'm named after my two grandmothers. They live on in my memory as a blessing to me, and we will remember them from generation to generation.
Given that our Yizkor this year falls out on 9/11 weekend, I think it's appropriate and timely to pay our respects with a moment of silence for the victims of 9/11. And remember that many of our parents were liberated by American soldiers. And virtually all of the parents that are on this screen sought refuge in this great country and were given the opportunity to live, to grow, and to, within certain limitations, also get healthy again. And most of us, if not all of us, have thrived in this great country. So I'd like to take a moment before the Kaddish to just recognize the greatness of this country and the horror that was inflicted upon us and continues to threaten us on 9/11/01. Thank you. With that, I'm going to recite the Kaddish. Yiskadal v'yiskadash shemei rabah, v'yalmod divra chigurusei, v'yamlit malchusei b'chayachon uv'yomechon uv'chaye d'chol beis Yisrael, v'agala v'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabah mivorach li'olam olamai omayo. Yisborach v'yishtabach v'yisborah v'yischoman v'yisnasei v'yisada v'yisalei v'yisalal Shemei de Kudisha Berichu. Lielo min kol Birchosa Vishivosa, Tush Bechosa Venechamosa, Samiron Bialmo Bimru Omein. Yehei Shlomo Rabba min Shemaya V'chayin Olenu V'el Kol Yisrael Bimru Omein. Osei Shalom Bimromov, Hu Yasei Shalom Olenu V'el Kol Yisrael Bimru Omein. I'm now going to turn this over to Chazan Goler.
The partisaner hymn, the partisan's hymn. Sorg nicht einmal, als du gehst dem letzten Weg. Chotschim den Bleien, verstellen bläue Tag. Omen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schau. Es wird abheut an unser Trockner seinen da. Omen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schau. Es wird abheut an unser Trockner seinen da. Von grünem Palmenland bis weißem Land von Schnee. Wir kommen an mit unser Pein, mit unser Weg. Von wo gefallen ist der Spitz von unser Blut. Sprotzen wird dort unser Gwure, unser Mut. Und wo gefallen ist der Spitz von unser Blut. Sprotzen wird dort unser Gwure, unser Mut. Jetzt wird die Morgensonne begilden uns dem Heind. Und der Nächten wird verschwinden mit dem Feind. Nur abversammeln wird die Sonne in dem Kajor. Wie ein Parol soll gehen das Lied von dort zu dort. Nur abversammeln wird die Sonne in dem Kajor. Wie ein Parol soll gehen das Lied von dort zu dort. This song is written with blood and not with lead. It's not a little tune that birds sing overhead. A people amid crumbling walls did stand. They sang the song with pistols held in hand. A people amid crumbling walls did stand. They sang the song with pistols held in hand. So never say this is the final road for you. The leaden skies hide the days of blue. As the hour that we long for so is near, our step beats out the message we are here. As the hour that we long for so is near, our step beats out the message we are here.
This concludes our service. We are deeply touched by the moving and eloquent remarks from all our speakers. We thank our second generation speaker, Dr. Jack Cook, our third generation speaker, Jessica Shigoski Warren, and our two fourth generation participants, Addison Carly Fisher and Fiona Pfeffer, for sharing their inspiring and heartfelt thoughts with us. We thank Chazan Goler for his beautiful and dignified prayer service and musical accompaniment. And thank you to Steve Elbaum for leading us in the Kaddish. We are especially grateful to the 6 FOBS families and 4 generations who joined us for the candlelighting ceremony from all over the country to honor and so lovingly memorialize their loved ones. Special thanks to our co-president, Lorraine Kaufman, for her moving introduction of the candlelighters and the rendition of our cities and towns. Many thanks to Alan Sachs, former president of FOBS, who shared with us some of the history of FOBS, its leadership, and our monument at Beth Israel Cemetery. If you would like to participate in next year's Yizkor service, which we hope will once again take place at Beth Israel, please contact us at fobs18@gmail.com. We hope that today's remarkable speakers have inspired you to volunteer for next year. We have also been asked by Trudy Elbaum Gottesman to ask all our members to reach out to the survivors who have not yet given their testimony to the Shoah Foundation. If you would like to do so, please contact Trudy Gottesman at 917-515-5533 or send us an email at fobs18@gmail.com, and we will be sure to contact Trudy on your behalf. So please remind everyone to make sure that they have given their testimony to the USC Shoah Foundation. That's the former name was the Spielberg testimonies. Again, our thanks to all our speakers and participants in today's service, to Jeremy and Jerry for hosting the Zoom event, and to all of you, wherever you are, for joining us today. Please look out for an email from us with details about an upcoming virtual program on Sunday, October 17th at 11 a.m. It'll be a very interesting book presentation. Please save the date. From all of us to you and your families, Shana Tova, a year of good health, happiness, hope, and peace. Gmar Chatima Tova. Thank you.